Welcome to the EisnerAmper Engaging Alternatives podcast series. I'm your host, Alana Margulies-Snyderman, and with me today is Chris Paolino, Portfolio Manager at Esker Point Advisors, LLC, a commodities-focused investment advisor and affiliate of Titan Advisors, a global alternative investment firm with over $2 billion in firm assets based in Connecticut. Today, Chris will share his outlook for commodities investing, including the greatest opportunities, challenges, and more. Before we dive into the conversation with Chris, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to EisnerAmper wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also find us on YouTube at EisnerAmper. Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Alana.
Absolutely, Chris. So to kick off the conversation, tell us a little about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I've been in the investment industry since 1999, which has some interesting parallels to sort of today's market, actually. Kind of grew up in a household of investment-focused people. My father and his father were both sort of in the retail investment advisory business. So I was always sort of around it as a kid. And when I got out of school, I started to head down the institutional path and worked several years at what was then United Technologies and is now Raytheon Technologies in their pension area, building their hedge fund allocation. And then subsequently from there went over to the Hartford, the insurance company, Hartford Financial Services Group, and managed a hedge fund allocation there, as well as sort of towards the end of my time there, I was the head of the portfolio strategy function for the insurance assets more broadly. And been at Titan/Esker Point since 2018, focusing on multi-manager investment solutions. So all that as a caveat, it's these views are my own, and this is not investment advice. Do your own work, etc.
At EisnerAmper, we are creative problem solvers that take a 360-degree approach focusing on you. We're an award-winning firm with decades of experience. EisnerAmper. Let's get you ready.
Chris, given your focus on commodities investing, I would highly welcome the opportunity to hear your high-level outlook for the space.
Yeah, I think the space is going to be fruitful for a period of more like a decade than, several months or a year. And part of the reason is it was, tremendously out of favor for sort of the 10 years leading up to COVID, and the asset class is out of favor. It attracts less capital. There's less investment, and it kind of creates the conditions for this sort of supply-demand mismatch that materializes over time. And they tend to run in 10 to 12-year cycles. That sort of got a spark lit under it by the tremendous amount of fiscal and monetary stimulus that was done during the pandemic. And in my opinion, it's been an underowned asset class in investors' portfolios, and we're sort of in the early stages of what I think is going to be an extended period of fruitful performance in the commodity space.
And Chris, more specifically in your space, what are some of the greatest opportunities you see and why?
Yeah, commodities are a really interesting asset class because the subset of them are also have such different drivers. And by that, I mean, I think it's a very sort of fruitful environment for stores of value like gold and silver, platinum, the whole precious metals complex, because of the federal deficit and debt dynamic, and people looking for alternatives to treasuries, as an example. In a very different vein, energy is also interesting. Things like natural gas that are going to be a key component to power this data center explosion that we're seeing, as a bridge fuel, and things like nuclear can't come online awfully quickly. And the electrification and grid build out is going to take enormous amounts of copper. So there's different pockets of drivers across the space that can be pretty different in nature.
Chris, on the other hand, what are some of the greatest challenges you face in your space and why?
Yeah, it's a great question. The biggest challenge that we've faced in talking with folks about the asset class is just that it doesn't really have a home in people's asset allocations. People don't really know even if they subscribe to the thesis that this is a fruitful place to be, it doesn't really have a bucket in a lot of institutional asset allocation portfolios. There's real asset buckets, there's hedge fund buckets, there's places that people can utilize the strategies, but it's not necessarily sort of a commonplace strategic asset allocation to commodities. So you're sort of making the case for the asset class and the diversification value, as well as different approaches and what's the right way to go about it.
Chris, we've covered a lot of ground today and wanted to see if there are any final thoughts you would like to share with us.
Sure. I think one of the things that I think is a really important takeaway for investors is to just really rethink the diversification within their portfolios. One of the key things I think we've seen since the end of the pandemic is, fixed income has not been the diversifier it once was leading up to sort of 2020. And equity markets are obviously extremely sort of concentrated among the mega cap tech stocks. And people have taken quite a bit of private exposure on, whether that be private credit and private equity. And there are, diversifying streams that you can invest in liquid form in things like commodities that I think investors should take heed to pay attention to, because I don't think that the typical diversifiers in portfolios, they may not work as well going forward. So we saw a little bit of a glimpse of that, I think, in 2022, but I'd expect that type of environment to be more like that than not going forward.
Chris, I wanted to thank you so much for sharing your perspective with our listeners.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening to the EisnerAmper podcast series. Visit EisnerAmper.com for more information on this and a host of other topics. And join us for our next EisnerAmper podcast when we get down to business.